Hi. One of the things you want to consider when you're getting ready to design your model railroad, and that is doing some research. And for myself, I wrote a book back in 2012, which was called the Madam Queen AT&SF 2000, AT&SF 5000. The research on the book actually helped me to decide to build a Raton Pass model railroad. Raton Pass was the first major obstacle that the Santa Fe encountered going across the country from Topeka out west. Everything up to that point between Topeka and Trinidad, Colorado was pretty flat country, and the 440 American style locomotive available at the time was plenty sufficient to pull a reasonable sized train across flat ground. But when the Santa Fe acquired Raton Pass, all of a sudden they had a big problem. They got the pass they wanted to give them access to California. But the 440 American locomotive was woefully inadequate to get trains over the top of the pass and down the other side. The steepness of the pass, which is still the steepest Class 1 railroad pass in the United States, required Santa Fe to develop much more powerful locomotives. And that pursuit ultimately led to the development of the Madam Queen steam locomotive, which is the most powerful steam engine with 2 cylinders in the United States. Its power rivals the big boy locomotive, which I have done research on this topic and produced a video about that, which I will put a link in the description. But my research proved that Madam Queen is equal to the power of big boy with regard to hauling tonnage up the mountain. And even though it's a much smaller locomotive, much shorter, much less complicated, and burns less fuel. So if you're interested in that topic at all, I recommend that video. It's comparing Madam Queen with Big Boy, and you'll find the link in the description. I encourage you to do research on your own. You don't necessarily have to write a book like I did, but just get on the internet and look up your favorite railroad where you like it to possibly be running. Kind of see what you can find on the internet and in some available books, maybe at the library or wherever you can find them, about the railroad of your choice and the era that you're wanting to model, and see what all you can find out. It will greatly enhance your enjoyment of your model railroad if you understand some of the history behind it. If you need someone to design your model railroad, I am in the process right now of starting a design service that I will soon have ready to go. We started converting our locomotives from Digitrax decoders over to Soundtracks. And in the process of time, I have become a Soundtracks dealer that I wanted to let you know about. The name of that business is DCC and Stuff. And that is where the design business will be available. It's going to be from the DCC and Stuff website. So be looking for DCCandStuff.com new layout design service coming in the very near future. Thanks. Here we have the outline of our building floor plan. The railroad is in a separate building from our home. And the dimensions here of the large room is just under 31 feet in length. and just under 14 feet in width at this part, about 7.5 feet here. The small room is just a little bit under 12 feet each way. And in this small room is where we started our model railroad. Years before we had the Raton Pass part in the large room, we had a switching layout in this little room here. Here's the benchwork that we had and still do have this same benchwork. And this benchwork in here was made out of steel stud framing. And I have a video on the channel that shows how we did that. Then we put the track plan in there. And I got to turn the main line on. Right there. So this is the switching layout that we had. Actually, this track continues up here and stops, and so does this one. But this is what we had for several years. And so we would come out here, and my son Aaron and I would switch out this. We had a little switching operation that Aaron came up with. And at the time, all this was Amarillo, Texas. So we had industries along the way here. This is showing the structures that are out there on the other part of the railroad. But there were some city buildings here and some city buildings here, an overpass, railroad tower, grain elevator, tri-state baking, and affiliated foods. So we would do operating sessions out here, and he would work one side of Amarillo, and I would work the other. And that just kept us busy for hours and days and weeks on end. We never did really get tired of it. But the only bad thing is you can't really do any mainline running on a situation like this, because even though there's mainline right here, let me turn off the, there's the mainline portion. It's just not long enough to do very much of a train, and it doesn't really go anywhere. So we wanted to expand the railroad out into this area and have the part out here where you could go up over Raton Pass and come back down the hill and back into town here. And when we decided to do that, we changed this from Amarillo to Raton. So let me kind of give you a view of that. But anytime you're designing a model railroad, you just have to work with the space that you have and try to do the best you can, making your main line run as long as possible with the available space. We could have come over to this part and filled all this in. In fact, I had even drawn a plan for doing that and filling all this area in with track to make the main line run longer, which would have required a gate here or maybe a duck under. We decided not to do that because I had to have a workshop to be able to take care of the railroad and be able to take care of my property. I had to have a workshop. And the workshop was in this area right here. So all of this area here gives us a nice little workshop that we can do just about anything we need to do in that little area there. So getting back to the switching layout, let me turn off the deck. in the Raton Pass area and turn the track back on. There was our basic switching layout. One of the design features of our model railroad in the large room and the small room both, we made a cantilever support system so that you don't have a leg going all the way from the underside of the benchwork down to the floor. So in other words, there's no supporting legs. It's all done by a cantilever self-support, except on the far end over here where Raton Mountain is. We do have some legs under this because it is so big. But all of these other narrower shelves, the 30-inch wide, the 18-inch wide, the 22s, they're all cantilever supported. And that gives us open access underneath for under layout storage. That way you're not having to, if you want to slide boxes under there or items underneath the layout to hide them behind the curtain, you don't have to worry about a leg being in the way. It really comes in handy, and it's something that you should consider doing, especially if you're short on storage space, because under your layout is a great place to get rid of things that you need to keep, but you need to store them organized. And we even numbered boxes and put numbered boxes underneath. And that way we made a list of what was in those boxes, and we can retrieve anything that we need simply by looking in our book, finding out what box it's in, and peeling the curtain back and going back under there to get it. It works out really good. Once I got rid of all of my tools and retired from the construction business and got this area here emptied out, then we could start thinking about building the mainline run. So that's when we built our bench work in here and came up with our main line for that area, for this large area. So you can see we just cut holes in this wall here and here and connected on to what we already had. This right here requires a lift out bridge, which doesn't show right now. That's on the structure level. Turn that on for a second. So this is a lift out bridge. It just lifts out and we can set it aside and walk back and forth. So we're coming along here westbound, and we start climbing right here. This is where the 3% grade starts, is right here at the end of this curve. Keeps coming up 3% till it gets right about this area right here. Then it levels off, goes into the tunnel, comes around, comes out of the tunnel. And at this point, it starts descending downgrade to Kyoto, which is right about in here. And then you get down to your main level again, and you come across here and you go back into Raton. 15 or so years ago, we decided that we wanted to have DCC control. So we hadn't heard about Soundtrax decoders at that time, so we were using Digitrax decoders, but they didn't have the ability to have sound. But even that gave us a lot of operational control. We didn't have to worry about electrical blocks or anything like that. We could just run the trains with those Digitrax decoders and go wherever we wanted to go, just like a real locomotive working in a yard. And while we were busy enjoying this, like I say, we started changing over to sound and started, as we could afford it, buy sound decoders, and just slowly changing over to getting all that done. When I got to the point where I could expand out into the larger room, and we got the bench work built, I set up a rotary laser right here. I was in the construction business, so I had those kind of tools. I set a rotary laser right here, and I got that rotary laser level with the benchwork that was in here. And then that rotary laser put a line on this wall all the way around that I could see. And that's what I built this benchwork to, was that line. I transferred that red laser light line and marked that laser line with the pencil. And then later I went back and drew from point to point of the marks until I had that same straight line down this wall, and down this wall. That way, this area out here is perfectly level with this in here, regardless of differences in the floor. And this is kind of an old building. This is all concrete floor out here. And but this room here, or this part right here, is kind of separated, or an add-on from the original building. And but anyway, the rotary laser helped us get this perfectly level with the original plan inside the small room here. There was a overhead garage door in this wall right here. It was large enough to bring a car in here, a small automobile. And I didn't really want to take that overhead door out. I left that door in there, but I took out the track that the door rolled up on both sides. I took all that out. I took out the spring mechanism that went across here. Just left that door in place, and I covered it up with steel stud framing and sheetrock so it doesn't show. But if we ever want to turn this building back into a garage, we can. All we got to do is take this little wall off, and that door will still be there, and it can be put back into operation. There was also a window right here that we used to have a window type air conditioner in. We closed that in. I cut a new opening right in this section right here to put a larger air conditioner in through this wall. And I don't have it drawn on the plan, but it's right here in this area right here. Then there was also a large window right here that was about 4 feet wide and 4 feet tall. And we framed that in so we could put pegboard all across this wall from floor to ceiling. And there's pegboard floor to ceiling on this wall right here, and pegboard floor to ceiling around this area right here. So we've got all that pegboard to utilize in our shop area. And the really nice thing about closing in those windows, garage doors, and all these openings so no light shows through. So when we want to film, we can come out here and set up film, turn on our lighting. Our lighting is on rheostat control, so we can brighten it or dim it as we need to. And if we want to do nighttime shots or daytime shots, all we have to do is turn down the lighting. We don't have to worry about any light coming in the windows. So it really makes it consistent from day to day. If you have to film over several days, you can keep your lighting consistent because you don't have to worry about any sunlight coming in through your windows. And that is a wonderful way to do it. I highly recommend, if you're going to build a model railroad, close up all of your windows. And people usually don't like to modify their house that much by taking out the windows, but you can leave them in place like I did and just block them out where they don't allow any light in. This big large window right here, when I blocked it in, I drilled a hole through the wall so I could put my the spray booth. The spray booth vents out this wall right here, and there's some little louvers out here. So when the spray booth comes on, those louvers open up, and allow that paint dust to blow out. And then over the top out here on the outside, that's where we put our train schedule bulletin. And so from the outside, it doesn't look like a window at all. It just looks like there's a sign hanging there like it should be. But that's a great way to do it. Block in all your windows. That way you can totally control the lighting. Now, whenever you're designing a model railroad, there's always going to be a lot of compromises that you're going to have to make. We would all love to be able to run passenger trains, steam and diesel, big diesels, small diesels, and do all these different kind of things. But on this available space right here, the largest curve radius that we could put in was 36 inches. And let me turn this main line on. This is a 36-inch radius curve right here. That is the largest radius. I tried to make all these others 36 as well. But when you get into here, there's tighter radiuses. And you can't put 36 inches in here where you've been into a smaller room. But out here on this main line run, that gives us the largest possible radius. And it works for most everything. It's a little bit small for your big steam engines like Madam Queen. Madam Queen will run pretty good downhill coming this way, for instance, but she struggles a little bit trying to take these curves with them 2-10-4 wheel arrangements. They have a tendency to want to try to come off here. The other problem we have trouble running is long Super Chief type silver passenger cars, the big 90-foot cars. They get a little tight in this area here and they don't look as good. But you just have to make compromises. The heavyweight cars on the California Limited go through here just fine. The 484s go through here just fine. Big diesels like your SD40s and things like that, they work fine on these 36-inch radius curves. And that was the compromise that we had to make here. I would have loved to have 48 or maybe even 60-inch radius curves. But if you just don't have room, you don't have room. The other thing we wanted to do was be able to turn trains around. In here, there's no room for a turntable. And there's really not any room for one out here either. So what we did is we decided to put in a Y. And there's the Y. At first, we just made the Y big enough to turn locomotives. Then we decided to expand it clear back to here. And most of the trains that we run, we can get the whole train through here. This will handle most of the trains that we run. So we can turn a whole train around right here and go the other way. That is very handy. If you notice, we have some missing track right here. And there's a switch right here that's not going anywhere. And that is our passing siding. So that gives us a way to bypass a train that's sitting in here. We can get trains past each other, and that helps operations a lot. I want to talk a little bit about track and turnouts. On Santa Fe's Raton subdivision, we use exclusively Atlas Code 83 FlexTrack. And we use Atlas Code 83 number 6 turnouts. Some people don't seem to care for Atlas track products, but I have never had any problems with it. They seem to be very reliable to me. They're relatively inexpensive compared to other things. And I have used Pico and Walthers and other brands, and they are fine. But I just never really found a real good reason to use anything but Atlas. So all of the turnouts in Raton, New Mexico here are number 6 Atlas Code 83. And also out here on the Raton Pass area. The only exception is the Y turnout right here. And it is an Atlas number 4Y, code 83. We could not find a number 6Y anywhere. And so that's one of the compromises that you have to make in model railroading. It has worked fine. We haven't had any problems with it. And we just go through there slowly if we're going through there with Madam Queen or a big steam engine. We just go through there real slowly at slow speed, and that usually takes care of any issues. While I'm thinking about it, we have 5 remote control turnouts that we operate with Tortoise slow motion switch machines. The first one is right up here at Wooten. This one is remote control. The next one is right here at Kyoto at the top of the Y. Then there's one right here at East Raton on the main line. This switch right here is remote control. And then as you come around here, these 2 crossovers, turnouts at Jansen are remote control. And all the rest of them, we use Caboose Industries ground throws. And those work just fine for us if we're done switching here. We kind of like to hand throw them anyway. We have a little dispatcher's panel right here that we can control those remote control switches with. And so the dispatcher can sit right here and take care of any switches that need to be thrown. And it's very easy to reach the Caboose Industries throw for the Y. And there's also one over here, but that doesn't have to be thrown very often. So we get by with that, and it works very well for us. Another really big part of our design and enjoyment of our model railroad are the photorealistic backdrops located along this wall, down the long run, and back around this wall. This is where we installed photorealistic backdrops. Each panel is 9 feet long and 36 inches tall. And this provides a very grand vista scene for everything out here in this area. The backdrops we have were purchased from railroadbackdrops.com, and they have a clear coating on them. I forget what they call it. But when we put the backdrops on first, that was the first thing we did before we built anything else. Well, actually, we had the switching area here, the Raton area here already built. But when we came out here to build, we installed the backdrops on the wall first, right where they needed to be. And we got all that done and secured, and then we built our bench work. When we started building our bench work and laying track and putting the woodland scenics, inclines, and all that stuff in, and doing plaster work and everything. It was very good to have that clear coating on those backdrops, sealing them from being damaged by plaster, water, paint spray, glues, all the scenery materials you can think of. If you get any of that kind of stuff on your backdrops and they have that coating, it'll just wipe right off with a damp rag, and we really recommend that you do that. That's well worth the money to have that protection, to protect that backdrop investment while you're doing all your scenery work. In this small room, the Raton, New Mexico area, we do not have photorealistic backdrops in here. Instead, I did sheetrock mud very smoothly on these walls and smoothed it out real good. Painted the walls a sky blue, and then I airbrushed clouds on these walls, and they look pretty realistic in our films. So, but we didn't bother to put photorealistic backdrops in here because this area was already built before we knew about getting photorealistic backdrops, and we didn't think it would be necessary as much to do it in this area as it is out here in the long runs, and where we're really trying to have scenic beauty. So we just left this with a basic sky backdrop with cloud cover, occasional cloud cover. Also, the scenes that you see in those backdrops are actual photos taken, I believe it was in November of 2017, maybe 2018, that railroad backdrops took those pictures off of Raton Pass. And when we started realizing that we were going to want to purchase backdrops of Raton Pass, I started looking on the internet to see what I could find. Nobody had any backdrops of the Raton Pass area that I could find online. And I discovered the railroadbackdrops.com website, and I called James Adams, the owner, and told him what we were trying to do and what we needed. And he said that he was on his way out west on a job, and he would drop back by through the Raton Pass area and take photos for us. So that worked out really good. We've got the first set of Raton area backdrops that he ever produced, and immediately put them on our railroad. We kind of drew out a pencil sketch of what we wanted. We wanted the Sangre de Cristos over here, and we wanted Fisher's Peak here, and different things. And we kind of described to him what we wanted. Emailed that to him, and then he sent back the proofs. And we kind of jumbled them around a little bit, printed them out on paper and jumbled them around a little bit, and trimmed them and clipped them, laid them out how we thought they would look really nice, and sent that back to him. And he printed them out and shipped them to us. And they have been wonderful. We just really enjoy them. It's one of the greatest things we've ever done for the visual appeal of our model railroad. Now let's talk a little bit about scenery, roads, and structures. Let me turn on the scenery button. Actually, there's two of them. Okay, here we have, you see all these trees on Raton Mountain and down through, scattered out throughout the entire layout. We first looked at commercially made trees, and we couldn't find any commercially made tree that looked like what we had in our backdrops. So I told Aaron, I said, I think we're going to have to make them ourselves to get what we want, and that's what we ended up doing. And we have a video on our channel that shows how we made those trees. And so if you're interested in that, you can take a look at that video. But we made about 300 to 400 trees by hand for this model railroad. And we think the results turned out pretty nice. And we were able to match the type of tree and color and everything that we saw in the backdrops. That's another thing that Aaron is very good at. He's artistic and knows about colors and dimensions and depth and all that kind of stuff. He just has that natural talent. He didn't go to school for that or anything. He just kind of born that way. But he was able to match the ground colors, the grass, and everything very well to the color of the backdrops, colors in the backdrops. And one of the things that he used, which I have never seen done before, but we did a basic ground cover of sand, kind of like just normal sand, just kind of for a sandy, dry, humid, arid look, and it still didn't look right. It looked more like a gravel parking lot. But Aaron took different colors of tile grout and put them in a wire strainer and sprinkled the different colors around on that sand. And it did a wonderful job of making dirt highlights and different kinds of soil and everything like that. And we wondered what would happen once we sprayed it down with soapy water or isopropyl alcohol to put the glue on it to hold it in place. We knew that when you get grout wet, it darkens it quite a bit. But we tried it and glued it down, and it worked really good. It did darken the grout a little bit more than what it looked like when we first put it on, but it still came out really well. In places that were too dark, we could go back over with a little bit lighter grout and dust it a little bit and blend everything. And we just had really good results with that. So don't be afraid to try different things that you've never done before. You may be surprised at how well it turns out. All of our roads are dirt roads, except, I take that back, on the overpass and the I-25 sections we do. But all of the roads out here on the layout that you see in yellow are just a sandy gravel type road that we did with, I believe it was Woodland Scenics light buff fine ballast. It was about the right color. And then these larger square areas are parking lots or working areas that are covered with gravel. This over here is for the oiler shop in the corner here. There's a hardware store here with a road going to it that goes back to a parking lot here for Cargill area. And so we just put a few roads wherever we could. We ran one around this area right here, and it just kind of disappears. This one disappears off the edge of the layout. But that's all we did with our roads, and they've worked out for us real fine. Now let's talk about structures a little bit. Let me get the file off here. In the Raton area, we have some city buildings, and in fact, let's just turn on turn all the structures on and turn the labels on. As you see here, we have a row of city buildings. There's a hotel and some stores right through here. This is a fuel tank for steam locomotives, because this track right here holds our legacy fleet steam locomotives that we run as modern day units. And there's a water tower right here. And right here is a tank for diesel fuel. And there's a diesel unloading facility right here. So we can service that as a part of our switching operations. So these two tracks here are fuel racks where we do the diesels. This over here is where we take care of the steam locomotives. And this dark gray line right here is I-25 elevated portion. And there's another elevated portion of I-25 right here. This right here is a yard tower. Here's a few trees. Here's some more city buildings and an overpass. And here's our boiler shop for working on the steam locomotives. Here's Rob's Hardware. Rob's Hardware was a real business in Raton back in the early 1900s. So we had this kit of a warehouse, and we wanted to give it a name, and we thought we would name it Rob's Hardware to kind of celebrate the history of old Raton. Cargill grain elevator is here, and we have grain cars that come in here and get pulled in and out, loaded in and out in our switching operations. Tri-State Baking is another industry that we service, and Affiliated Foods is a warehouse that supplies food supplies to grocery stores. Then right here we have the AT&SF Santa Fe Depot. It does not look like the Raton Depot at all, except that it is adobe style. But we did not have room for the Raton Depot. The real Raton Depot was so large, it would probably take up this whole corner here. So we represent it with this smaller depot. Then as we go up the line here, there's a mine at Starkville, and that's what these three structures are. These are all part of the mine operation. Of course, coming around here, there's a tunnel portal right here, the east tunnel portal going into Raton Pass. Here is where the west tunnel portal is. And then there's a little steel girder bridge right here that passes over Raton Creek. I don't know whether that really exists or not, but it looks good on our layout. This area right here is Kyoto, New Mexico, which there's no structures there. It's just a station name on the railroad. And then we have a lift out steel girder bridge that you see in the photo here that we lift out so that we can access back and forth, freely walk through here and get into here and get out here so we can run our trains. So that pretty much sums up all of our structures on this layout. We really needed the ability to control the lighting in the room, and we needed what they call daylight bulbs over the layout itself, because that gives the most natural sunlight look. So what we did is we installed track lighting on the ceiling right in here, and then it goes this way a little bit. And then on that track lighting, we have spot floodlights type fixtures that we can direct down on this part, over onto this part. And like I say, using the daylight bulb, it looks like natural sunlight on camera. And then there's a rheostat control right out here on this wall, where we can dim this area if we want to go nighttime or any kind of a dimmer light situation like cloud cover or anything like that. Out here, we have a string of track lights on the ceiling right down through this area here on the ceiling. And the same type fixtures are on that. There's floods up there, and we can direct them in all directions and light up this entire area evenly. And then the rheostat control for that is over here on this wall, right inside the front door. So we can control all this big room lighting except for the workshop area with the rheostat that's right here. And we can control this entire room with the rheostat that's right here. For the workshop, we have one 8-foot long LED fluorescent shop light, ceiling shop light on the ceiling. And that is just controlled by an on and off switch right over here. And that provides a super amount of nice, clean, bright light for the workshop area. But when we're running trains, we keep this light turned off and we just run, we shut the door. That way all out exterior sources of light are blocked off. And we set our dimmers comfortable to what time of day we're trying to operate in or night. And we can run our trains, do our filming projects, and the light is always consistent from, it doesn't matter what the weather's doing outside or whether it's nighttime or daytime outside, the lighting we can always make look the same inside the building. The style of layout we have here is a walk around or walk along, where you can walk along and watch as your trains travel. But we also have it at the height. We have it at 40-inch height, which is the lowest elevation. All of this Raton area and this area up to right here is all at 40 inches, except where the grade climbs. The grade climbs up a little over 3% until it gets right up here. So this area right here is a little over 7 inches higher than this area back here. That 7-inch plus height continues around to this tunnel portal, and then it gradually goes back down at the 3% grade rate until it gets to Kyoto and gets back down to grade 0 again. But even though, like I say, you can walk along with your train, just like many layouts do, we use rolling chairs. We like to sit down while we're running our trains. If we're in here and doing switching operations and we're in a rolling chair, we can sit down and operate our trains, roll back and forth in the chair to throw turnouts or whatever we need to do. The only time we really need to stand up is like if we need to uncouple a car or if there's a derailment or something like that. And the same way out here, we try to sit down as much as possible. It makes it a lot more comfortable for long sessions. And you can always stand up when you get tired of sitting, and you can sit down when you get tired of standing. So it really makes for a good, restful, easygoing, relaxed operation.